The emergency broadcast crackled across every inhabited system in the Galactic Coalition. Queen Ziratha of the Phylixian Empire, one of the most powerful species in known space, had lost her daughters. 2 royal cubs, barely past their first molting season, had vanished during a diplomatic mission to the contested border worlds. Within hours, armadas mobilized. The Krill sent their hunter fleets. The Ascendancy deployed psychic trackers. Even the notoriously isolationist Vex opened their sensor networks to aid the search. 1 trillion credits in bounties floated through the void, and every mercenary, bounty hunter, and opportunist in 12 sectors turned their ships toward the last known coordinates. They searched derelict stations and pirate dens. They scoured asteroid fields and interrogated smugglers. The Queen herself stood aboard her flagship, her crystalline fur dimmed with worry, her 4 eyes scanning the star maps with increasing desperation. No one thought to check the small human trading vessel drifting peacefully through the Kepler belt. Riley had found them in the cargo bay 3 days ago. He'd been running diagnostics on the gravitational stabilizers when he heard the noise, a soft mewing that definitely shouldn't exist on a ship with only 2 human crew members. Following the sound, he'd discovered 2 small creatures huddled behind a crate of Martian whiskey. Shivering and clearly terrified, they were about the size of house cats, covered in bioluminescent fur that shifted between silver and deep purple. Their eyes, 6 on each face, blinked up at him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Riley had seen enough xenobiology documentaries to recognize apex predator genetics when he saw them, but these 2 looked utterly helpless. "Arya," he'd called out. "You need to see this." His partner had appeared moments later, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, grease smudged across her cheek from working on the engine core. When she saw the creatures, her eyes went wide. "Riley, those are—" "I know what they look like," he'd interrupted. "But they're babies, and they're scared." That's how it started. Now 3 days later, the 2 Phylixian cubs had claimed the observation deck as their territory, and more specifically, they'd claimed the humans as their personal furniture. Riley sat in the pilot's chair, supposedly monitoring their course through the belt, but actually serving as a cushion for the smaller cub. She'd curled up on his lap 2 hours ago and hadn't moved since, purring with a sound like distant thunder. Her bioluminescence pulsed in contentment, casting soft purple shadows across the console. Arya worked at the navigation station, the larger cub draped across her shoulders like a living scarf. Every so often, the creature would nuzzle against Arya's neck, and she'd absently scratch behind the cub's auditory membranes, earning more purrs. "We should probably tell someone we have them," Arya said, not for the first time. "Probably," Riley agreed, also not for the first time. Neither of them moved to do so. The truth was complicated. The cubs had been terrified when they found them, traumatized by whatever had separated them from their mother. Riley had spent that first night sitting in the cargo bay, speaking softly about nothing in particular, while Arya had fashioned a nest from thermal blankets. Slowly, the cubs had crept closer. By the second day, they were eating the synthesized proteins Arya had modified to match Phylixian dietary requirements. By the third day, they'd started the purring. Humans, Riley reflected, had been domesticating predators for thousands of years. It was apparently an instinct that transcended species. "The whole galaxy is looking for them," Arya continued, pulling up the latest news feeds. Her screen showed armada formations, diplomatic standoffs, and increasingly frantic coalition broadcasts. "Queen Ziratha has threatened to incinerate entire systems if her daughters aren't found." Riley looked down at the cub on his lap. She'd rolled onto her back, exposing her belly, a sign of absolute trust in any predator species. Her tiny paws flexed in her sleep. "They're safe here," he said quietly. Arya turned to look at him. The cub on her shoulders chirped softly, sensing the shift in mood. "Riley, we're talking about an interstellar incident. War could break out over this." "War could break out because everyone's so busy being terrifying and official that they've forgotten these are children," Riley countered. He gently stroked the sleeping cub's head. "Look at her. When was the last time she felt this safe? When was the last time anyone just let them be kids instead of royal heirs or bargaining chips?" Arya was quiet for a long moment. The larger cub nuzzled her cheek again, and despite herself, she smiled. "Humans are idiots," she said finally. "Yeah," Riley agreed. "But we're idiots who figured out that sometimes the scariest predators just need someone to give them a lap and tell them everything's okay." Arya pulled up the communication array. We should at least let the Queen know they're alive and safe. Agreed. But Arya? Yeah? We don't hand them over until we're sure they're going back to safety. Real safety. Not a diplomatic cage. She met his eyes and nodded. This was why they worked well together. They both understood that sometimes the right thing wasn't the legal thing. The message Arya crafted was simple. Your daughters are safe. They are fed, warm, and happy. They will be returned to you when we are certain their security has been ensured. They send their love. She attached a video file. Riley in the pilot's chair with the smaller cub sprawled across his lap. Arya at her station with the larger one draped over her shoulders. Both humans looking calm and protective, while the cubs purred contentedly. The message shot out across the void. Queen Ziratha's response came within the hour. Her image filled their screen. Massive, terrifying, a creature of crystalline fur and apex predator grace. But her voice shook. You're humans. Yes, Your Majesty, Arya replied. My intelligence briefing said your species domesticates predators, that you take dangerous creatures into your homes and convince them they are family. Riley shrugged. We're good at making friends. The Queen's 4 eyes focused on the sleeping cubs visible in the background. Something in her expression softened. A universal language of motherhood that needed no translation. I will send my personal guard. But know this, humans, you have done what fleets and empires could not. You gave my daughters peace when the galaxy gave them only chaos. They're good kids, Riley said simply. After the transmission ended, Arya looked at her partner. We just negotiated with a galactic superpower. We just gave 2 scared kids a safe place to nap, Riley corrected. The cub on his lap stirred, yawned with a mouthful of crystalline teeth that could someday tear through starship hulls, and settled back into sleep. Humans, the galaxy would learn, had a peculiar talent. They could look at the universe's most dangerous creatures and see something worth protecting. And sometimes that was exactly what the universe needed.